In the early years of the 21st century, there was a strange smell around Ray's Sausage on Imperial Avenue in Cleveland. The smell brought discomfort to the local residents, and even the birds, which used to perch on a wire that runs near the business, stopped coming after the smell started. "Something is going on. The birds stopped coming, and that was because of the smell. It was a terrible smell," one resident said. Humans are good at finding rational explanations for their fears. Since the smell was coming from the direction of Ray's Sausage, it must be spoiled meat, the sewer system, or the curing spices that had gone bad. Ray's Sausage owner even spent $30,000 to clear the pipes and clean up the sewage. At that time, no one imagined that the real problem came from the house next to Ray's Sausage, 12205 Imperial Avenue. On October 29, 2009, several police officers, holding an arrest warrant for a rape case, knocked on the door of the house. When no one answered from inside the house, they broke down the door. At the time, the house was empty. But after searching the house, the officers found 2 female remains in a bedroom on the 3rd floor. The subsequent search was like opening Pandora's box. 4 sets of remains were buried in the crawl space of the basement. More bones were buried in the backyard, and they even found a human skull inside a plastic bucket. Over the course of more than 2 years, the remains of 11 women had been hidden in the same house. What was most chilling was that the smell of decomposition had permeated the entire community for years, yet the neighbors had assumed it was a problem with Ray's Sausage. Beyond that, what was most disheartening was the conduct of the local police, who repeatedly received missing persons reports from the families of the victims, yet time and again they chose to ignore them. "If they're using drugs, they'll come back when they're ready," one police officer said. The killer was called Anthony Sowell, had served in the Marine Corps, and appeared to be an ordinary neighbor. No one could have imagined the darkness of Sowell's inner world, or that his house would become a tomb for black women, drug addicts, and marginalized people. On August 19, 1959, Sowell was born in East Cleveland, ranking 3rd among 7 siblings. Sowell's mother, Garrison, was a single mother who raised all these children alone. Sowell's childhood was filled with extreme abuse and violence, but the main victim was not him. Rather, he was one of the perpetrators. Sowell's niece, Davis, recalled that Garrison frequently subjected the children to physical abuse, especially her. On one occasion, Garrison forced her to strip naked in front of the other children and whipped her with an electrical cord until her skin was torn open and bleeding. Even worse, from the age of 10, Sowell raped Davis almost daily for 2 years. On January 24, 1978, 18-year-old Sowell joined the Marine Corps. He served a total of 7 years and was officially discharged on January 18, 1985. During his 7-year Marine Corps career, he did not display any bad habits or behavioral issues. However, in 1989, his violent tendencies were exposed to the justice system. That year, a woman who was 3 months pregnant was attacked by him with binding and asphyxiation as she attempted to leave his home. He tied her hands and feet with neckties and belts and stuffed a cloth into her mouth to gag her. The woman later said, "He choked my neck forcefully. My body started to go numb. I thought I was going to die." In 1990, Sowell was formally charged with kidnapping, rape, and attempted rape. In the end, he was guilty to attempted rape and was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In 2005, Sowell left his prison and worked in a factory. After being fired in 2007, he began receiving government welfare benefits and scavenging scrap metal throughout the community to sell for a living. Sowell was a friendly guy. He had a big smile and he liked to sit on the porch and slowly sipping King Cobra, sometimes bringing a few girlfriends home. "He just looked like an ordinary person," one neighbor said. "He would play chess in the front yard and host barbecue parties in the summer, inviting everyone to join." However, Sowell had a serious need to be in control and dominant. He signed up to an online dating service, presenting himself as a master seeking submissive partners for discipline and training. During this time, he got romantically involved with Lori, who was the niece of the then Cleveland mayor Frank Jackson, and let her move in with him at his house. Lori later said that Sowell's house often had a bad smell. When she asked him about it, he would just say it was his stepmother downstairs or that it was problems from the raised sausage. In 2008, Lori finally had to leave because she couldn't stand the smell anymore. She never thought that the smell was coming from dead women. Not many people have an idea of what a dead body smells like. It's a kind of gaseous, fleshy, rotten stench that's mixed with blood and tissue. When it persists, people gradually become numb to it. One investigator explained, 11 women lost their lives. They were not just numbers, they were mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends, all trying to get by in tough situations, but unfortunately, ending up as Sowell's victims. 35-year-old Crystal had been seen by her mother as a responsible child and her little mother hen. However, fate was cruel. After the death of one of her children, the pain of losing her baby plunged her into drug troubles. Sowell lured her into his home by offering her drugs, then raped and murdered her. At that time, after Crystal went missing, her family chose to report it to the police, but were ignored by them. 33-year-old Tishana went missing in 2008. Her family said that she would often bring food to homeless people living in their cars. After years of homelessness, she had finally secured a small apartment in the Woodland Hills neighborhood, yet just as her life was beginning to turn around, she was dead. In August 2008, 25-year-old Long was murdered, and in October, 45-year-old Michelle was murdered. In her youth, Michelle had made her way through New York and New Jersey, and eventually choosing to return to Cleveland to restart her life because she had been battling drug addiction for many years. However, she became Sowell's victim. One of Michelle's family said, "Someone stealing Christmas decorations can make the news, but a missing mother goes completely unnoticed." In November 2008, 52-year-old Tanya was murdered. On January 29, 2009, 44-year-old Smith was killed. In the spring of 2009, 47-year-old Hunter was murdered. In April 2009, 44-year-old Nancy was murdered. On June 3, 2009, 48-year-old Janice was murdered. Also in June, 31-year-old Fortson was murdered. In September 2009, 38-year-old Diane went missing. 11 women, 11 lives plagued by drugs, poverty, and social indifference. Among them were daughter who carefully cared for her disabled father, grandmother who devoted her whole heart to raising 5 grandchildren. They were all struggling to survive in difficult circumstances. As the prosecutor stated during the trial, Sowell specifically targeted marginalized women because he knew that the disappearance of these people would not alarm anyone. In September 2009, 50-year-old Sowell extended an invitation to Lori Billups, asking her to come to his house to smoke crack cocaine together. On September 22nd, a battered and bruised Billups walked into the Cleveland Police Department and recounted a horrifying story. After entering Sowell's home, they had a few drinks, but Sowell suddenly began beating her, strangling her throat with both hands, and raping her after she lost consciousness. Fortunately, she regained consciousness quickly. After confronting him for a while, he let her go. October 29th, several police officers, armed with an arrest warrant for the rape case, broke into Sowell's home. 2 days later, this man, known as the Cleveland Strangler, was captured while on the run, bringing his criminal career to an end. Further investigation revealed that, in addition to the 11 victims, there were 3 survivors, all of whom had been lured to his home under the pretext of using drugs together and subsequently suffered rape. And in reality, that was not the first time Sowell had been arrested by the police. As early as 10 months prior, he had been arrested due to allegations from another survivor, but was released without charge due to a detective's decision. One of the darkest investigative failures in the history of the Cleveland Police Department. On December 8, 2008, 41-year-old Gladys Wade, covered in blood, flagged down a patrol police car. She said a horrifying story to the patrol officers. Sowell had invited her inside for a drink, and when she refused, he suddenly attacked her, dragged her up to the 3rd floor, bound her with neckties and belts, and choked her until she lost consciousness. When she woke up, she found herself naked and being sexually assaulted by him. Then, she struggled free from his control and escaped through a broken glass window, her fingers bleeding profusely from the cuts. The patrol officers immediately took action. They rushed to Sowell's house and found struggle marks in the snow, blood stains on the steps, women's clothing and underwear in a trash can, and glass shards on the window, all of which confirmed that Wade was not lying. Thus, Sowell was arrested on the spot. Later, the case was transferred to the Sex Crimes and Child Abuse Unit, assigned to a detective named Georgia. But 2 days later, when Georgia reported the case to the assistant prosecutor, she explicitly stated that there were conflicts between Wade's account and Sowell's version, and that there was no evidence supporting the sexual assault allegations, resulting in Sowell being released directly. And on the very night of Sowell's release, Georgia did something utterly inexplicable. She returned to Sowell's residence alone. She saw the broken glass that Wade had described, but she did not enter the house, did not report any abnormalities, and did not inform anyone of her visit. When later questioned by attorneys as to why she returned, Georgia defended herself by claiming she wanted to examine the scene, yet insisted that this did not change her assessment of Wade's testimony. She seemed to be defending him, a victim rights attorney said, and her defense cost the lives of 5 women who came after. After his arrest, Sowell faced 11 counts of aggravated murder and 74 related charges, including rape, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of corpses. On July 22, 2011, the jury found him guilty of 9 of the 11 murder charges. On August 10th, the jury recommended the death penalty. 2 days later, the judge adopted the recommendation and formally sentenced him to death. Later, on February 8, 2021, Sowell died at the Franklin Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. When the police found the 11th body in Sowell's residence, his neighbors finally realized the smell they had complained about for years had not come from the Ray's sausage. The owner, Ray, testified in court saying, "Because we're in the meat business, everyone thought it was us, but when they walked into our factory, there was no smell. It was always outside." However, upon learning that the smell had come from 11 decomposing human remains, Ray did not feel any relief. He said, "Knowing the truth didn't make me feel better. It only made me feel that all of us were living 3 feet away from hell." What shocked the community residents most was the indifference of the Cleveland Police Department. The families of the missing women reported to the police multiple times, only to be told that they were drug users who would come back on their own. Residents filed complaints with the police, yet never received serious investigations. This structural neglect of marginalized groups ultimately cost the government a heavy price. In 2011, they reached a settlement with the victims' families, paying $1.3 million in compensation. In addition, the dark house was demolished, and later there was transformed into a memorial called the Garden of 11 Angels. One neighbor said, "I couldn't wait for them to tear it down. Everyone wanted it gone. It is a bad memory. I never want to see that house again."